Hi, it's Robert Mendelson, Fractional CMO here in beautiful Montreal, welcoming you to another episode of the Fractional Pros Canada podcast. We're part of Fractional Pros Canada, the home for Canada's fractional community, and you can find us on Facebook. We bring you conversations about everything fractional that matters for fractional executives and businesses from coast to coast. Think of this as your go-to spot for real talk, practical wisdom, and strategies you can actually use, all without the corporate fluff and with plenty of Canadian content. Whether you're a fractional pro or a business in our great country of Canada and beyond, this conversation is for you. Grab your espresso and let's dive in. Welcome to the Fractional Pros Canada podcast. I'm your host and fractional CMO, Robert Mendelson, here in beautiful Montreal. And joining us today from just down the street
of course,
is Sarah in Victoria. Sarah Wilson is a fractional COO and operational turnaround partner for founder-led SMBs. This episode is sponsored by Fractional Pros Canada, the home of Canada's fractional executive community. It's the place where over 1,600 Canadian fractional executives like Sarah gather to connect, share, learn, and refer. You can learn more at fractionalproscanada.ca. Sarah, welcome to the pod.
Thanks so much for having me, Robert.
So a little bit of digging in your past life, and I see you spent a number of years in compliance and analysis roles.
Yes.
Before going into operations management. Now, compliance often viewed as, compliance. It's a bunch of rules. It's a bunch of boxes, boundaries. It's checklists. So, do you miss that having gone into operations? I mean, maybe you do.
Well, it's funny that you speak to that, Robert. In operations, it can feel like you're the one who's always saying no. In operations, it's often, okay, we have this really great idea. Now let's go execute it. And this is going to be great. And it's going to work awesome. And you then get to be the one in the room who says, actually, so it's a little bit of a dance in operations, I'd say, to not be kind of pulling on my compliance roots, if you will, and balancing that. Yes, we can spirit with the realities of executing, be it, system limitations, resourcing limitations, and all that comes with actually rolling something out.
Yeah, I'd imagine there's a lot of takeaways of, the structure that compliance is and is necessary to have. When it comes to operations, I think typically, in companies I've been involved in my own companies, the more structured operations are, the more things are, written out, SOPs, the better everything runs. So from there, I would imagine there's a lot of compliance goodies that filter down into operations in a very good way.
Yes, for sure. I love that you spoke to the SOP piece. It's so important, I think, for businesses to capture their business processes. And nowadays it doesn't have to be this big, lengthy, cumbersome kind of SOP process. We're lucky to have a lot of different modern tools, AI tools, for example, process documentation that's captured via video. Nowadays, capturing those kinds of processes in your business isn't as difficult as it used to be.
So what's your take on this as a fractional COO? You work with obviously companies, businesses. Let's talk about your own fractional business. Let's talk about other fractional businesses, which often are a one-person operation. What's your take on having SOPs, having that same structure, even in a one-person business?
Oh, I'm very passionate about it, Robert. I make it a practice of my own, actually, to put those pieces down on paper. I use a platform called ClickUp as a project management software. I bought it kind of first to capture my clients' projects in it. Like it's a really good way to build a project plan and be able to have your clients have their eyes on it if they so want to. But as a secondary piece, I actually will document and put workflows in, this step 1, step 2, step 3, and that's easily done via AI for me. And the reason I do that is because as I look to scale in the future, And if you're one person wanting to go to, scale your expertise and scale who you are, you need to have all of that written down to be able to hand to someone else. And so I like to practice what I preach in my own business, and I think it's really important.
I love that. And there's a lot of fractionals I've spoken to who I've talked to about that of, ways that they can improve how they're running and improve their efficiency of time. And sometimes the pushback I get is, well, I don't want to scale. I don't want to get bigger than one person. I don't want to ever exit. I don't ever want to sell this thing. I don't want to grow too big. And I'm like, you're missing the point, right? Don't
Yeah.
just do that because you want to sell one day or because you want to scale. Just doing it, even if you don't ever want to do that, is still going to help you so much in a foundational way of running a more efficient business. And instead of spending time figuring out what should I do here, you already have the procedures, the systems, the checklists written down and put in place. So it
Yes.
becomes just, oh, let me see what I wrote down to do in this situation. Oh yeah, that. Okay, next. It's so much
Yes.
easier.
And it helps too, even going through that process. So to your point of we should do it anyways, one of the big reasons why everybody should be documenting their processes is there's always an opportunity of how to do something better. Like, the first step is documenting a process. That's kind of the first step you would take if you're looking to improve a process is let's get it out on paper, current state. So in doing that, you do have an opportunity to possibly improve something. And when improve could be done better, done faster, or both of those things. And, when we go into business for ourselves, isn't part of it to get that lifestyle back, right? That, being in charge of our own time and documenting processes and then looking to improve them is one of the ways you can do that.
You specialize, among other things, in simplifying the work that can't be seen but always gets done.
Yes.
What is at the top of that list in your experience when you're working with clients that falls under that invisible work?
I would say it's typically the processes that live beside and outside of ERPs. So what can happen is, businesses that are either early ERP or they're maybe on a solution that's very kind of out of the box, is there's a lot of processes that develop outside of the system, of the main accounting system, because of their complexity. And I will use pricing as a great example. So in a kind of high SKU environment, when there's multiple SKUs, like, a business has many different product lines and they've got a lot of different SKUs and data points, they'll usually develop their pricing processes outside of the ERP because ERPs aren't typically really good at doing pricing. And those are the ones that, people have the best intentions. They build these processes and they're outside of their system and they're in a spreadsheet and there's layers upon layers upon calculations. And there's really good business reasons why those processes develop and grow like they do, but they end up as the business scales to be these big, huge kind of workload manual things in the background. And a lot of risk comes with that as well, because the how they work typically only lives in the heads of a few people. So those are the kinds of things that I love to dig into with my clients and work on developing either a better spreadsheet, more streamlined spreadsheet, more documented spreadsheet, or almost a hybrid of we typically can't get everything in the main accounting system, but we can kind of usually use it a bit better than we are today, and then have a smoother, cleaner spreadsheet process that might live beside that, if that makes sense.
How do you find those invisible processes? It's kind of like a Ghostbusters team you need to bring in
I
to
love that.
right a
Yes.
blue light and look for things that aren't apparent to the naked eye. How do you do that, and how do you make sure you catch them all so that you can start optimizing, correcting, streamlining?
Yeah, it's the best way to do that is to walk through actually through a series of interviews is usually how it's done from start to finish. The process itself, you really should talk to everyone. And the rule there is talk to more people than you think you need to, i.e., even if they're in a function that's, maybe not directly related to the process itself, still talk to those people and then ask more questions than you think you need. Like my rule of thumb is, ask yourself, have I asked all the questions? And you've got to ask yourself, you just say, oh yeah, I think I have. Ask a few more, just a few clarifying questions, a few more like questions like, so you might ask someone, walk me through the process at hand. They do that. And then the question that's often forgotten, like people forget to ask is, does it always work that way? Tell me about the times that there's exceptions, or tell me about the times where this process was broken, or tell me about the time, did we used to do this better in the past, or would you say that we've improved from the way we used to do it? Like, always ask as many questions as you can, more than you think you need. And then, of course, just ensure the variety of roles and functions are included in the interview process. And I can ascertain from a series of interviews a pretty clear picture of how a process works. Part of that's experience, and part of that is just the nature of, in my own career, I've been in, as you mentioned, in compliance, I've been in finance, I've been in sales, I've been in procurement, I've managed data, BI, data insights, and project management. Like, I've kind of done most of the functions except HR. I've never done HR. Other than that, because I've been in all of these different functions in my career, I have the lens of that cross-functional, how things work in a big scale, like from the 10,000 foot view, if you will.
I'm thinking about a typical founder-led business that starts off small and
Yes.
grows and grows and grows. And then one day, without the founder realizing it, they've just outgrown their systems. And
Yes.
there's so many different ways that they could optimize. But they're inside the business, they're inside the bottle. They can't read the label from inside the bottle, so to speak.
Yes.
When we come into a business, or if I'm a founder listening to this and I'm like, yeah, it's probably right, but how do I know? What are
Mhm.
some of those indicators or warning signs that say that the business has officially outgrown their current operating system?
What you find is the first hint, I would say, that happens is your staff, the key people in your business who hold key roles, have key, institutional knowledge. Often they're putting in more than an average kind of work week. There might be some late evenings and some weekends, and um, part of, my leadership style is to always advocate for having that balance, because, I've always loved what I do, but I also recognize, putting in, sometimes you have to put those hours in, but making those hours kind of really heavy for a long extended period of time as a permanent way of working is a great indicator that, wow, the role that these people used to hold could fit in the container of a typical amount of hours in a week, and now that's expanded to a permanent kind of overtime situation. So that's the first indication. The second is, it's what feels, the day to day can feel like a lot of little different things are are breaking, but they don't break in the sense that you can see them break, but a founder's day is taken up by a lot of what feel like little problems that have escalated. That's another indicator that, wow, the processes that got us here aren't getting us there anymore, if you will. And that's just, it's it's almost like a death by a thousand cuts, if you will.
Mm.
If your day looks like, wow, I'm dealing with in the weeds, in the weeds, in the weeds, and I haven't even had an opportunity to think strategically about my business in a while, that is another kind of indicator. And it can be a really hard thing to see when you're in your own business because it's that thing that you've built, you're passionate about it, you're an expert, you brought your business to where it is, and that is amazing. And it's something that's so something to be proud of. But it's gotten really hard all of a sudden.
And once, put myself back in the role of the founder, I realize I see these signs. The gut instinct is often like, oh, people are working too many hours. There's too many people put in too many hours. I must need more people. So let me go hire more people, right? That's the first thought is it's a
Yes.
people problem, it's a resource problem, rather than thinking about, hang on, maybe, operationally I could be more efficient and keep the same number of people and just have them working more efficiently so they're not working 80-hour weeks. How do
Yes.
you have that conversation with the founder and make them realize that it's not a resource issue, it's a organizational, operational issue?
I love that question. It's I hope that people have thought about the operational side of things and called me before they, went and hired those people that you're talking about. And the way that I make the case to a founder is to really one process at a time improve, um, get that process going a bit better. Say it's pricing, say it's something else in the finance department around, say, posting transactions or whatever it is. And the proof is in the hey, we knocked off, we improved, we structured this one process better, and we've saved X number of time. And then do it again. Once you have a couple of examples under your belt of improving, then I think the founder can truly see, like, if we won back this much time over here, and then you can actually say, look at how much time we could potentially save. We've done it here, we've done it here. And, in that interview process that I've had with your staff, we have other potentials of here and here and here. And the other thing I would make a case to that founder as well is what you want to do is if you bring someone fractional in or, consultant like myself, is we're there to help the business. But I would also at the same time try to get my team to adopt that continuous improvement mindset because you want your teams to not just you don't want to have just the external person come in and look for the opportunities. That's great. You need that outside looking in a viewpoint. But as long-term sustainable growing business, you need to actually build that process improvement muscle within your own team as well, so that they are always looking for those operational improvement opportunities. And it's true what they say. Some of those are really hard to see when you're in the day to day, but it can be done that your staff start thinking of the opportunities themselves as well, of where we can find 5 minutes here and 10 minutes there and an hour savings there. Not all the improvements are hours and hours and hours, but you can stack a few processes pretty quickly and get those what ends up being hours back in a week.
Yeah, I think you touched on what's a bit of a trap too, which is a temptation of like, okay, we're going to optimize and let's find where we can save the most time and start there.
Mm-hmm.
And very often it goes off the rails right away because instead of trying to find, let's say, 20 different changes that'll each give a 1% improvement, we look for that one thing that'll give a 20% improvement. And often you're just biting off more than you could chew, and it's not going. The success rate of that one big 20% is going to be much lower than the success rates of all those little changes that start to add up and are much easier to implement.
Yes, and people will often get comfortable with the 5 minutes. So, oh, this only takes me 5 minutes 3 times a week. How about it takes you 0 minutes 3 times a week? Like that's where I come from. And Robert, I've always said, jokingly, that I'm one of the laziest people I've ever met. Because if there's more than 3 lines of typing into Excel or a form or something, I will spend an hour automating it, even though it only takes me 2 minutes to, do it manually. I get beyond 3 lines and my brain goes, okay, how can I automate this? And that has served me well because I will spend that time, either automation, learning how to automate in that platform, find a different solution, simplify, or even sometimes when it comes to process improvement, you need to ask the question, why do we do this? Oh, sometimes the answer is like, well, we've always done it. Okay, great. If we've always done it, why have we always done it? And you ask why long enough, and you sometimes get really lucky and go, oh, well, you don't actually need to do that. Or, yes, we need to do that. It's important because, and then you find your kind of automation solution. So it's always, I've always been a proponent of how can we improve this? Even if it only takes, because it might take me 5 minutes 3 times a week if I'm really experienced, but think about that next person in that seat. How much time are they going to, have to spend learning? So to make something sustainable, I'm always an advocate of thinking about how to do it better.
So do you think it's possible to over-automate?
Absolutely. I would say to kind of cleanly answer that one is maybe not over automate, but automate in the wrong ways. So there's one of the things that I always advocate for is there needs to be a level of review on a process. So, for example, if you're getting something automated that involves writing something, you always need, as a human, eyeballs on what something's writing out and what the end result is before it gets published, for example. And you really need to understand the process from end to end and understand what that automation is doing so that you can, as a human in the process, know what it's doing so that when you look at the outcome, you fully understand what's been, what the automation has done, and that there's always a human element of review. We should never just hand a process completely off to automation and just step back and go, yeah, we're good now. That's absolutely a huge no-no when it comes to improving processes.
Kiss of death. A lot of people say keep the human in the loop. I like to say keep the human in the lead.
Yes, I like that. Definitely. As the human in the scenario, you want to lead the way instead of letting the automation lead the way. I really like that, Robert.
All right. It's yours. My gift to you.
Thank you.
Sarah, share with us a gift. Share with us your journey from going from, full-time corporate life to fractional life.
Oh, I'd love to. So it was really funny when I went to look at my LinkedIn and reflect kind of on my journey. I'm like, 20 years. Well, it doesn't feel like 20 years, but I started in a kind of corporate enterprise environment. I worked for 14 years actually at a company called Cisco Food Services. So they supply restaurants and kind of food away from the home. And I was fortunate enough to work in a lot of different functional areas in that business. I started in sales, and then someone saw something in me about back office and administration. And I was, at the time being in sales, I'm like, come on, I'm a salesperson through and through. What's this? What's this whole admin thing you want me to do? But it worked out really well. And at Cisco, I had this opportunity to move around because there was lots of areas that needed support in terms of admin help. And then once you also like they were really good at recognizing talent and moving people around. So I got a broader cross-functional experience than the average career gets. Like it's not super common for people to kind of be in finance, be in sales like I was, and then finance, and then move over to procurement. And then like I did a lot of laterals because I just kept getting recognized for the work I was doing, which was mainly around improvement. And then I had the really good fortune to go into the retail environment. So I worked for a national hearing aid retailer at the time, about 140 locations across Canada. So heading up operations for them was a great opportunity to have that, because I'd been in the B2B space for the majority of my career at that point. Getting into the B2C space was really interesting. At the time, I actually had hearing loss myself, so I really understood working for the hearing aid clinics, like understanding what the client journey was. I've since had that hearing loss corrected, which is really great. But both of those experiences really were so beneficial in terms of understanding how business works from like end to end back office. And I thought to myself, I went, I wonder if I could just go and improve, like do that improvement as a job. And that reflecting, and I had been, I went in to do my MBA, which I've since completed. And the MBA I did gave me exposure to actually people who own their own businesses. And being in that corporate environment for around 20 years, it actually doesn't occur to you that you could be into business for yourself. Like, I know that sounds crazy. And I think that's crazy now being out on my own. But before, when you're in and they were, I've had really great employers that I'm really proud to work for. So there wasn't this sense of like really wanting to, wanting to leave or anything, but just the idea that I could be in the driver's seat. And then I heard about what a fractional was. Like I didn't even understand that until I would say my last year with that employer. And it stuck with me that this could be part of what my reinvention looks like, if you will. And yeah, you got to try it. So I'm so glad that I did. I love being a support to businesses, but having that diversity of, my career, as I said, in Cisco went, all across these different functions and then eventually, made its way up. I love the diversity of being a fractional executive because you get to help, like, your whole reason for being there in the room with the client is you're there to fix something. And then that joy that washes across their faces when they're like, oh, this is so much better. Like I live for that. And the fact that I get to focus in on that and I don't have that kind of day to day. And I loved working in a corporate environment. There's a lot of time spent on, what feels like not value added activities and updating people and status meetings. And I really wanted to get into the weeds of helping and fixing and improving. And this has really allowed me to do that. And I really love it.
What were the biggest challenges, the biggest panic moments when you first went fractional that made you go, oh man, I wasn't thinking about this, or what am I going to do now?
I would say, Robert, I love that question because I've always been a fairly confident person, which is I'm glad that I am. I think people should have really good confidence in themselves. But I didn't really fully understand what imposter syndrome was until I went out on my own. Like, as they say, imposter syndrome is that feeling like I'm, I'm in the room and I don't like, do I deserve to be in the room? Or are they going to find me out? In my corporate career, because I've been technical and I've dug into details and I've always kind of done the work that nobody else wants to. So you get kind of a more than average, like, kudos, and people are excited because you've taken that messy, horrible thing nobody wants and fixed it for them. So I always have felt, wow, like when I get to be in the room, I've earned that and I know that and I'm confident in it and it's great. But when when you're out on your own for the first time and you don't have that team of people to lead, you don't have that executive team behind you, or beside you, depending on your level in the organization, of that really consistent positive feedback, that can really, like, there's an exercise in developing your own confidence that I think every fractional or self-employed person needs to go through. I'm glad to say that I'm like, I made it, but it was hard at first. You really need to build your community, and that's what I appreciate about the fractional pros. Like, the communities like yours are what gets fractionals like us a community to lean on, to learn from. And I think everybody who goes out on their own needs that, because even if you have clients lining up out the door, that's not the point. It's like when it's just you, it is an entirely different exercise than being a corporate employee, for sure.
Let's double click on overcoming that imposter syndrome. Looking back now, what were the tips, tricks, hacks that worked and helped you move from a place of fear
Yes.
and uncertainty to, I got this?
I think positive client feedback helped. But the other thing that I did, when you're building your business at the start, you're trying to work on your positioning, you're trying to work on your marketing. Is that right? I invested a lot of time, and some money to get education, of course, on my own personal brand. And that has helped me while I'm figuring everything else out. That's really helped me with my own confidence and how I show up in the business world now, is because I spent a lot of, and that was mainly LinkedIn for me, but also started the Operating on Purpose podcast. I have a YouTube, and I really wanted to build a profile that I could be really proud of. So that helped me have that grounding. Okay, this is my thing. What does my thing that I'm building look like? Investing in time in social media has helped me build that portfolio of personal brand, how I show up, and that really helps. Come through. Like, you get to see on paper when you get to see your personal brand online out there. That's like a really great reflection of, like, look at what I built.
The name of your podcast, Operating on Purpose, I feel like there's a few different ways to interpret that title, On Purpose. And
Yes.
talk to us a little bit about that. Is that about operating just what it says, literally on purpose, or is it more between the lines, operating in an intentional way?
I love that. So it's a little bit of wordplay, because it means both. So it really is being intentional with how you run your business. You being the person who's orchestrating the way you want your business to be instead of your business happening to you. And so it's a little bit of intentionality, but it's also around the structure that we encourage as fractional, because my co-host Penny Cook and I are both fractional COOs. We both have a really different lenses given our prior work experience. But we both agree and are aligned on what operational excellence looks like. And so we hope that listeners of our podcast will, because we each episode we talk about a specific operations topic, and we give kind of 3 actionable items that you can take away right that day and think about in your own business if you wanted. So we want operators to really be purposeful with how they run their business. And that's where we got to with the name in it. So I love your question because it really truly means both.
How do you handle the kind of touchy situation where you have a client, you're brought in, to come in and tell us, help us optimize our operations, or maybe there's a particular issue or crisis going on, a fire to put out. And once you get on the ground, you quickly realize that the problem is not the operations. The problem is the person running the operations, or the people, or the head, that one throat to choke, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And that person is just not aware that they are the bottleneck. They are the problem. How do you have that tough conversation to try and open their eyes to that?
I love tough conversations. I have this belief, and I think it has served me well, that even, and I've had the experience of working with maybe more challenging people in my career, people with differing levels of self-awareness, high self-awareness, low self-awareness, somewhere in between. And I've always found, and I always believe, that people they intend to do their best. Most people come to work with the intent of giving it their all, doing their best that day, going home, coming back, and doing the same the next day. I don't generally find that there's anyone who's intentionally they don't come to work with malice. They don't intentionally dislike people, but the human experience is very complicated. There's layers of human relationships. There's ego. We all have one. I'm not saying one's bigger than another, but we all have an ego. We all have our own interests. We all have our own motivations. So I just see people very, I believe in people. And I feel like, given my vast experience with working in such a big company with so many individuals and leading teams, I see people for kind of the sum of their parts, and I can kind of pick out, that bottleneck that you're talking about. I can recognize that fairly quickly, and I'm a big fan of having an honest conversation. I will never say that it's an easy conversation, because it's not. Having that difficult conversation takes courage, and we should acknowledge that it takes courage. But you can have a very honest and direct conversation that still feels really supportive. And that's, you can use, I think it's important to answer your question, to use the right language and the right spirit. So maybe the bottleneck is the founder themselves. It wouldn't surprise me if on some deeper level that founder knows, but they don't really want to acknowledge it yet, or it's not kind of come to the forward of their conscious mind. Maybe it's more subconscious. And as an external, you can say with the right tone of voice, either neutral or even positive, you can say and be honest with them that, hey, you paid me to come in and do this thing. And here's my assessment. Here's my honest assessment. And here's my assessment of your role in this. And here's where the potential challenges are. Some of them are here, and some of them are here. And the here over here might actually be problems directly with the founder, but you just speak to the challenges and just be careful with your language, but be completely straightforward and honest. And that generally works because you're in it. The other great thing about being a fractional is you are external and are not subject to the messy politics of the matter, right? You just aren't. So I would say to other fractionals, use that to your advantage.
So when you're having that conversation, which way do you lean? Is it, I'm seeing this and this and this, and all of these are lining up to suggest that perhaps you, founder, or whoever it is, is the problem here, versus, I'm seeing all these things. Founder, do you think it's possible that you are the problem here? One's a little bit more direct, one's a little bit more almost therapy style, where they try to get the patient to admit the problem or find the problem and help lead them to self-discovery of that. Which approach do you tend to lean towards?
For sure, I would say the straightforward. I've had difficult conversations where the recognition, I watch it go on someone's face, because I will have a difficult conversation with this same tone you and I are having a conversation right now, Robert. It would be very, probably positive. And then when I say the words, it takes a moment because I lack the like, you need to have these conversations with your full confidence. So because I don't have this, like, I haven't adopted this, like, scared kind of, oh, we really need to have this chat and this is going to be really hard. It's really very like, this is what I've observed and this is where the process, that I've observed, keeps getting held up. And I will completely describe the founder. So instead of taking language like, hey, founder, you're the problem, it's always process and structure. This is how the process is. This is how it's structured. This is how it usually works. This is how it's been working. And here's where it's breaking down. And it's usually, like, so more often than not, a founder is involved in a process that they shouldn't be, that they should have delegated a long time ago. So you can outline a process and be almost people neutral about it and say, this is what it looks like. Here's what I've observed. And here's the breakdown. So I've just told you, Mr. and Mrs. Founder, that the process is broken down with the executive level approval. And the founder knows exactly, like, I've just plainly outlined in the terms of the process, not the people, where it broke down. And we can have a really productive conversation about what needs to change. And I haven't made it personal.
We got to switch directions here before we wrap up. I would be remiss as a foodie if I didn't ask you, as somebody who worked with Cisco, and I worked in the food service space for a while too. I was selling rotisserie ovens for a while.
Oh, nice. Excellent.
Way back. And so I went to a lot of the big food shows and know Cisco very well from that perspective. What was your favorite Cisco food? Did you get to try a lot? Did you get samples? Did you?
All the time. Yes.
All the
Oh my
time.
goodness. The food, like, getting access to the food from Cisco was like one of the best benefits. Of all things, Robert, you might kind of be disappointed when I tell you my real answer is the chicken. Chicken breast, the way the IQF, like, chicken breast. Oh my goodness. It is hands down the best chicken ever because it's IQF. You just take out what you need from the freezer, defrost it. It's delicious. And I think to myself, man, if I could have that chicken again, that is one of the
There were
best.
these. What were these? Were we talking breast, thigh, leg, and also is it raw? It's pre-cooked. Is it fried? How's it prepared?
It's actually really boring. They're chicken breasts only, and they're individually frozen. They've got a little bit of salt water pump in them so that when they thaw, they don't get dry. And what you do is you get them frozen, you get a big box of food service size, that you have it in your deep freeze, and then day to day you just take out as many as you need to thaw. And it's just it is one of the most convenient. Like, now you buy chicken breast at the grocery store and you have to, like, pound it to be thin, and yeah, my life is much more complex with chicken now that I don't work at Cisco.
My favorite message to hear on the intercom when I was working at the rotisserie manufacturer was when they would announce, call the marketing team to the test kitchen, because that would mean there's a fresh batch of chickens coming off the rotisserie.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's wonderful.
And we were cooking like commercial. These were commercial ovens, so we were cooking full loads of anywhere from 30 to 50 chickens at a time. So, that would brighten up my day whenever I'd hear that message. I knew there was some hot off the oven awesome chicken to sample. And the company's still around today. They're actually in most Costco's. They're the ones who are supplying, among other places. So I could talk for hours selling you one of those ovens right now, because the way they cook and the whole technology, I go crazy on that stuff. But such is being the life of a foodie.
Yes, it's once a foodie, forever a foodie. I've not let go of that part of my personality for sure.
Well, that's good to hear. All right, let's wrap this up, Sarah. The question we ask all of our guests: if you could put one message on a billboard for millions of fractionals and business leaders to see every day as they drive by it on the highway of life, what would that one message be?
I would say always endeavor to do better today than you did yesterday.
Always endeavor to do better today than you did yesterday.
Mm-hmm. That's it. I think that it sounds so technical to say continuous improvement mindset. It doesn't have to be that complicated, right? It's just do whatever it is a little better today than you did yesterday. And that is a recipe for success, regardless of what role you play.
You've dressed up continuous improvement in some really good marketing.
Right? Used to be a foodie, and now I'm a continuous improvement marketer.
There you go. There you go. All right, Sarah, this has been a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us here today on the Fractional Pros Canada podcast.
Yes, thank you so much, Robert, for having me.
That's a wrap on another episode of the Fractional Pros Canada podcast. If you're a fractional professional based in Canada, we'd love to have you join us in the Fractional Pros Canada Facebook group, the home for Canada's fractional community. It's where Canadian fractional executives connect, share insights, and help each other succeed. Until next time, I'm Robert Mendelson, Fractional CMO. May your impact be full-time, even if your hours are fractional.